Guruve Gaura Chanjaya Radhikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Panchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Dhanyavad Pranam devotees. So, just like the title of this particular session says, this is a very short Q&A on various topics. I don't think I'm going to be able to get to all of them. Again, I been a little bit under the weather for one, and for two, I still have some services to catch up on. So I'm going to deal with just maybe like 3 or 4 of them and try to also put them in short order. So the first question that somebody wrote me was about that they took Diksha, means after Harinam, then one receives Diksha. I think in ISKCON they call second initiation, devotees from ISKCON, so he wrote me and said he had taken second initiation. It means Diksha, mantras. And he's been around for quite some time, and he chants his Harinam, is what he's saying, but he has not chanted the Diksha mantras for some time. And he's mentioning that in part it was due to being overwhelmed by his schedule, and also he had heard, I'm just paraphrasing everything so I can put it all in a nutshell, that he had heard that Harinam is most important, and so he was considering that at least if he's chanting Harinam, then even if he could not chant his Diksha mantras, that would not be such a major thing. And another point that he brought up was that he could not really fully understand the mantras because when he received his Diksha, he got a piece of paper and he tried to memorize it, which he did, but he doesn't really fully understand everything because he doesn't speak Sanskrit language. So a couple of things here. One is the Diksha mantras and Harinam, they go together. Because Harinam is when Sri Guru reveals under the shelter of the Guru Parampara, reveals the mercy or Kripa of Sri Nam and gives the disciple that name in Parampara. Because the name itself is independently perfect. Purno Suro Nitya Mukto Abhinatvam Nama Namyo. So name is always perfect. But when it's received in Parampara, its efficacy is able to be experienced by the aspirant in a much deeper way. So, point number 1. The Diksha mantras are meant to give relationship to Harinam. Sri Jiva Goswami Pad is written, Divya Gyanam Yantra Shrimati Matre Bhagavat Surup Gyanam Tena Bhagavat Sambandha Visesh Ganungscha. So the word Sambandha means relationship. And here it says, Visesh Sambandha means the speciality or the unique relationship that you have with Sri Krishna, with Mahaprabhu, that is given in the form of a mantra at the time of Diksha. So obviously it requires the maturation of the aspirant to unfold into the realization of that relationship which is embedded in the mantra. So certainly, chanting of Diksha mantras is indispensable. Jiva Goswami Pad has mentioned that just like if you, and all the acharyas have given example like this, if you have rice and that's your sustenance, you're going to take rice. Well, having the rice is one thing, but needing to make the rice digestible and functional for you, it requires other things. It requires cooking, and cooking requires utensils, requires fire, requires the necessity of water as to boil the rice. So in this way, Diksha mantras are indispensable to the efficacy of Harinam for those who are not already realized souls. Those who already realized soul, the mantra and the nam are really one reality, because the Diksha mantras themselves are composed of a bij, and that bij is also a sort of encapsulated form of the name, like the Omkara, right? A, U, Im in Sanskrit, then there's a Chandra Bindi, right? So if you see the word Om written in Sanskrit language, you'll see that everybody's seen the Om symbol, they call it, but it's really 3 letters. It is Akara, Ukara, Akara, Ukara, Imkara, and Chandra Bindi, right? So Akara means Krishna, Ukara means Radha. Imkara stands for the Jiva. The word Kara means a letter. And the Chandra Bindi stands for Prem. So the relationship of Prem between Radha and Krishna and the service to that Prem of the Jiva is embedded in the Omkara. So everything has Nam. I mentioned this the other day in relation to a conversation I had with one very advanced devotee, and we were just discussing, and we were mentioning that Nam is Pradhan. It means foundational in everything. That's why Mahaprabhu told Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shakti, right? That everything is embedded in Sri Nam. So, to the next point, if you have received the Diksha mantras, but you were not clear on their meanings, then it is, according to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I believe it's in Bhakti Tattva Vivek, he's mentioned that it is imperative to receive siksha of the mantra. If your Diksha Guru Dev is no longer present, or your Diksha Guru was unable to, for whatever reason, to give the various elements of the Diksha mantra, then you should get that from a qualified Siksha Guru. And so the elements of the mantra contain certain things. It is called Vidvad Rudi. So Vidvad Rudi means when the mantras contain, for instance, mantra artha chintan. So mantra artha chintan means the ability to contemplate the meaning of the name. So Sri Guru should explain, even if you do not speak Sanskrit language, they should explain word by word the meaning of the mantra, so that you have, at least in your own language understanding, what it is you're saying. And then also there is a dhyan or meditation to the mantra. Then there are other elements to the mantra like Nyas, Prapatti, Saranagati, Atmaniveda. So many things. And so those things should be explained so that the disciple has a working map and a working facility to employ the mantra, or serve the mantra is the proper word, but I'm saying employ here as the way to unfold and develop in relationship to your spiritual aspiration. So if you did not receive that, then you should get siksha of that. Now, in terms of having not chanted the mantra for some time, what should you do? Well, one is you should always consider. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami has made it very clear. Swamantri Shri Namni Vraja Nava Yuva Dwanda Sarade Sada Danda Hitva Gururatim Apurvamatiktaram. That you should have an unprecedented, right? Apurva means unprecedented affection for Sri Nam and for the Guru given mantras. So Sada Danda Hitva. The word Damba means pride. So pride means any consideration regarding ourselves that would put us in a position to not develop this unprecedented love and affection for the mantra. Because remember, the mantra is also Guru. In other words, Sri Guru appears in the form of the mantra that he's given. So even when we don't have physical association with Sri Guru, Sri Nam and Sri Mantra are our association. So it is imperative that one takes an apurva means unprecedented, something you have not experienced previously. Rati means affection, deep mood for Sri Nam and the Guru given mantras. So your progress in bhakti will certainly have some challenge if you're unable to grasp and serve under that ideal. So if your life is very busy, then some concession is made. Normally, mantras are chanted at very specific times. sunrise, noon, and sunset. This is called the Trisandhya, means 3 different periods of the day. But our acharyas have given allotment. If you have to work, and therefore during the midday time you may be employed, and you cannot chant, then you can chant twice during the sunrise. So just prior to going to work, you can chant your mantras twice, right? And then of course in the evening, you can also chant the mantra for the 3rd time. Now, the actual ideal of the mantra is to create a dhyan, means a meditation. That meditation is unrestricted, right? Just like Mahaprabhu told about Harinam. Niyamita smarane nakala. To remember Harinam, there are no rules and regulations. So at your job, at your place of, at the gym, wherever you are, you can always remember Harinam. You understand? So there's no restrictions to remembering Nam. So in regards to your mantra, though there's some stricture, some allowance is given to allow, especially in our modern contemporary arrangement, for us to still maintain deep attachment and affection to carrying out the order of Guru, because Guru Agya is very important here. One offense against the holy name is Guru Avagya. Means to disobey the order of Shri Guru to chant your mantras 3 times a day, etc., etc. So you have to try to find some facility to do that. Now, in the circumstance that you have not chanted for some time, you also mentioned, do you have to hear the mantra again? There is a case of that. Preferably, you would, again, to ask your Shri Guru Dev, first revealing your heart, because by revealing your heart, it creates the open channel for Guru Dev not only to give you again, to allow you to hear the mantra again, but to open the channel of his compassion to subsidize that sense of void or dearth that you felt in being unable to accomplish the service to Sri Mantra throughout the period you have not been chanting. So that's ideal. If you do not have the facility, your Guru Dev may have entered Samadhi, so forth, so on, you should approach any person who's Siksha Guru on that level, whom you can resonate with, and begging the mercy of your Guru, see that your Guru's presence has come in that Siksha Guru, hear the mantra again, and then pick up again chanting the mantra. If either one of those 2 things are not available, then praying for the mercy of your Guru and the Guru Parampara, simply start to pick up the mantras again. But I would advise that you should get understanding of the mantras so that you can apply your heart truly to the chanting. If you're unable to apply yourself to the chanting, it will become ritualistic. And of course, Srila Rupa Goswami Pad is warned against this as niyamagraha. Sometimes it is also called anustanic. The word anustan means, anu means something that's done continuously. So anustan means to situate yourself in a continual ritualistic practice, essentially. So you don't want that. You want a living service mood to Sri Nam and to our Guru given mantras, to the seva of Thakurji, means the deities, also of course to the lotus feet of Sri Guru in the form of his order, his instructions, etc., etc. So, Prabhuji, if you have any other question regarding this thing, you can again write to me, and I'll try to give more elaboration. The next question was, not understanding so many Sanskrit verses. So, I don't know, we're on a Sanskrit thing today here. I'm also not, completely expert in Sanskrit language. Sanskrit language is very elaborate. There's so many grammatical rules and regulations and so many things. But by the mercy of our Guru Parampara, especially our Srila Prabhupada, we've had the ability, through the way he manifested his books, to have facility to gradually pick up Sanskrit language as it's applied to knowing the tattva or the siddhanta or the philosophical conclusions of bhakti. And that's what's most important. We're not interested in Sanskrit scholarship for linguistic purposes, right? Unless you plan to work at a university or something, or you just want to do research or something, it's one thing. But if your sense of knowing Sanskrit language is for bhakti, then you should think, I need to know how this language serves understanding Bhakti Tattva. And that becomes the sum and substance of the application of Sanskrit language in regard to Bhakti. Remember, the language is a servant of Bhakti, not the other way around. It's not that Bhakti is dependent on Sanskrit language. Somebody could be extremely expert in the language, but not understand the depth of Bhakti, because the depth of Bhakti comes from the revelation given by Sadhu Guru. So it's not coming from any mechanical purposes. Nayam Atma Pravachani na Namerasa Nabahushutena. Right? So it's clearly mentioned here that erudition in the ability to give, any kind of lectures and so forth, Medasa, very good intelligence, right? Bahushutena, having studied all the commentaries, everything of all Sastra, those things are favorable when employed in the service of Bhakti. But those things in and of themselves cannot reveal Bhagavan. Right? Bhagavan says he reveals himself by his own accord. Not dependent on these things. So, another part of the question, let me open my phone again. Another part of the question was, let me see. Oh, about not being able to quote verses and to give class. There's not a need, absolutely, to know Sanskrit and Sanskrit verses to give a class. If you read it and understood it in English language, and you can explain it properly, conceptually in English language, that is sufficient. And you should think, in the service of Guru and Guru Parampara and Sriman Mahaprabhu's mission, if I only understand it in English and can preach it in English, and it is correct Siddhant, I should give all facility to doing that. And I should not try to either hold back or wait or be discouraged by the fact that I may not be able to grasp another language, either Sanskrit or Bengali, etc., etc. Right? In Sanskrit, there's some help there in that there's some words in Sanskrit language which give some deeper understanding, because there's some things that just don't translate over into English as well. Even a word that we use quite often, prem, we translate as love in the general translation. But our conception of love within the material world obviously is very different from what is the substantive reality of what is being called prem in the context of bhakti. Right? There's so many nuances in what is called prem. You understand? So it's not a direct translation, but it, to say love gives a general idea. So certainly, if you have facility and time and so forth and so on, without becoming distracted and without allowing your bhakti pursuit to be sacrificed in pursuit of linguistic expertise, then no harm to try to learn some Sanskrit language and some Bengali, and by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, by the translation of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and also by the translation of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, there is some facility to get basic ideas of Sanskrit language. Okay? We are moving right along. What about Vaishnav dress? Well, one of the 64 angas of bhakti is Vaishnav Chinadharan. And here Vaishnav Chinadharan is described as especially the wearing of Udva Pundra, means vertical tilak, Kanti Mala, means neck beads, right? And for men having a shika. So these are principal Vaishnav Chinadharan. Additionally, someone may wear Trikach Dodi, means a dhoti tied in 3 places if you're Grihastha, and if you're Sannyas, that tying of the dhoti will be different, so forth. And for ladies, the chaste dress of saris or commonly called gopi skirts and things like that. But especially Vaishnav Chinadharan here refers to Udva Pundra, means tilak, gopi chandan, somewhere radhakund tilak, etc., and kantimala. Right? These are the essential elements, and shika for men. This is the essential elements of Vaishnav Chinadharan. Now, obviously, in contemporary society and Srila Prabhupada's concessions, he allowed devotees, especially for the purpose of service, to distribute books and other things, to wear secular clothing, right? And those who had to work wore secular clothing. so forth and so on. So there is no idea that the absence of dhoti and kurta and sari will be completely dismiss the ability to practice bhakti. There's nothing like that. On the other hand, creating a sort of anti-culture, right? Or a competitive culture that, oh, well, all of this is just Indian per se, and, you know, we need to especially not do that. That then becomes another swing of the pendulum to some extreme. So what is practical and pragmatic for you to continue your bhajan and go on? It's been made very clear by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Antarnishtakara bhaya lokya vyavihara. So internally you should be absorbed in your bhajan, right? And you should honor especially the Vaishnav Chinadhana I've mentioned. Urdhva Pundra Tilak, vertical Tilak, Kantimala, and for men you should have Shika. Right? If it's possible. Right? Actually, it's very strange because when I first went to work in the police department, they told, listen, a couple of things. One is those jewelry you have to always keep it covered. So I said, oh, well, that's fine. I could do that. And you have to cut the ponytail. So I remember that very clearly. But if there's some unusual circumstance like that, that's one thing. But other than that, you know, primarily we should internally be very absorbed in our bhajan space. And externally we may have to make adjustments. But at least the Vaishnav Chinadhana I've mentioned, we should try to maintain that if there's no extreme circumstances that would prohibit it. And certainly don't go on a campaign about the dress one way or another as being an absolute in terms of practicing bhakti, right? You know, bhakti is an internal thing, but the external things give support and nourishment to that. So they're not frivolous either, and they're not strictly cultural. It's only Indian to wear tilak, kantimala, etc. That's also as ridiculous as anything else, right? Srila Prabhupada even made examples that if you're working, and he gave the example of my former profession as a police officer, then, you know, you wear a uniform. That completely identifies you as a police officer. Secondly, you'll notice that anything that we do externally contributes to the abhiman we have, self-conception we have, right? So you'll see people who dress in very Kali Yuga style of dress nourishes a Kali Yuga mentality, right? If any woman is dressed in a way that is very unchaste, or a man is dressed in a very unchaste way, and also wears clothes that that indicate certain mental conceptions or socially engineered ideals, right? It nourishes that abhiman about that person. So similarly, there's an inner nourishment of tilak, kantimala, shika, dhoti, kurta, right? There's an inner conception, and everybody experienced that when you joined the movement originally, if you joined during the period of time and you lived in an ashram, that all of those things were nourishing to the self-conception that I am practicing bhakti and I want to be a devotee, right? So that is one thing. Last thing for today, because this is very short. Oh, how to tell who is a pure devotee, and that's literally what the question was. There was no other information. There was no other details written. How to tell who is a pure devotee. So this is a pretty large subject. I think I've spoken somewhat on it before. So you hear different things. You hear sometimes people say, it takes a pure devotee to know who is a pure devotee. So that is and isn't true, because our Srila Prabhupada in the 5th verse of his Nectar of Instruction, Upadeshamrita, he mentions clearly that there is an onus on the aspirant to recognize what is Majjamadikar, Uttamadikar, etc., especially in regards to choosing a spiritual master or choosing Shri Guru. So there is some way to begin to understand, and that is by understanding what is Guru Tattva and what is Vaishnava Tattva. So you'll have to put yourself in a position to understand the teachings regarding Guru and Vaishnava, and also understanding the symptoms. So there are 9 symptoms of bhav, means of our perfectional stage. So you should become familiar with those things I quoted at the beginning of the verse. Kshantir avyakta kala tvam. So kshantir means they have become very peaceful. Avyakta kala tvam. One symptom of somebody who's become very advanced is that they don't like to waste any time in anything frivolous or anything which is unrelated to bhakti. Virakti means they have a sense of detachment. Right? That sense of detachment is inner detachment. It doesn't necessarily have to be displayed externally, because even those who have, let's say, taken sannyas ashram, then the external dress should be in alignment with the internal mood, right? Some people have taken sannyas for Guru Seva. So maybe completely the mood of renunciation is not fully set in, but there's enough dedication to the service of the mood of Guru that I will not accept anything else except the circumstances most favorable to that service, and the sannyas ashram was most favorable. For some people, grahastha ashram, married life, will be the most favorable for your service for so many different reasons. But if your chief spirit in grahastha ashram is enjoyment, or your chief spirit in sannyas ashram is enjoyment of the facilities awarded to the sannyas ashram, both things lack virakta or renunciation. You understand? Manasunyata means to be void of pride. So in this way, systematically, you could go through and you'll see what are the symptoms of advanced spiritual practice. And then, you know, having understood that and sincerely practicing yourself, then so much also is revealed by the Antaryami, by Sri Bhagavan in the heart. So, but we will not completely depend on that, because we don't have adhikar to directly understand everything regarding the super soul. In the Adi Leelas mentioned there clearly, Jive Sakshat Nahi Chaitya Guru Rupe. That Chaitya Guru Antaryami is not directly available to the conditioned soul. Therefore, Krishna Mahanta Swarupe. Krishna appears as Mahant. The word Mahant literally means a physical manifestation. Right? He appears, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, before the external senses of the conditioned soul. So we'll find high class of Vaishnava meeting some of the qualities that I've mentioned in that verse. And they should also be Siddhantavid. They should know what is Bhakti Tattva, right? Especially also in this line, they should be Rasik. Means they should understand what is the sweet mood inherent in bhakti, because if they cannot translate through harikatha and other things that sweet mood to you, then your taste in material life will not be easily removed. Because remember, in Bhagavad Gita, it's clearly mentioned there, raso vrajam rasopi asya param drishyana bharatate, that it's only by the superior taste of the rasa, either by prabhav, means influence, or by direct experience, right, of a higher kind of rasa, means the rasa that is embedded in bhakti, that the jadras, means material taste, can be given up. If that's not possible, then a kind of dichotomy will always be at play between material energy and spiritual energy. So we want to, as best as possible, find someone who can have those qualities, right? And then as you become more yourself advanced in bhakti, the clarity of the symptoms of pure devotion will be more visible to you, right? If you take someone to a jeweler and you ask to explain the high quality of this diamond versus this imitation, right? If they're not someone who's steeped in the knowledge of gemology, then they obviously would not be able to do that, right? So two things would be here. One is becoming acquainted with the study of gems, one thing. Secondly, to inquire from those who actually know gems. So these are two methodologies that can work hand in hand to bring about a deeper knowledge of understanding what is pure devotion and how to see pure devotion in someone. So I think we will leave it here for today. This was meant to be short, so I can carry on with some other services and try to take some rest and everything too. Try to combat some what is it? I don't want to say I'm not feeling really sick, but just, you know, I had some muscle strain here and all these kind of things. So just dealing with all of that and trying to take care of the body so I can try to do some seva. All right, my Dandavat Pranam. Panchakalpaturvesha Kripa Shindavevacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Jai Radhe Radhe. Secondly, I will, as it comes closer, by the mercy of Guru Gauranga, announce any of the places that I will travel this year to serve Harikatha and to get the association of devotees. Because whenever I'm traveling, it is one to serve Harikatha, which is also for my edification and to follow the order of my Guru, Padapadma. And secondly, to have the association of those devotees who were able to serve Harikatha together. So, I'm trying to do it. Oh, Prabhuji. Oh, Sham Prabhuji, Sham Bala Prabhu. Definitely will come. I will contact you. In August, there is plan to come to Texas. So, while there, I will... I'll contact you by inbox, and yeah, definitely that sounds like a good idea because we will be in Texas, I believe, in August. So during that time, I will contact you before that and maybe arrange to come to Dallas and have your association. All right, my Dandavat Pranam. Radhe Radhe.